Something about you does not add up. Nah. And I mean that in the most disorienting, wonderful, completely inexplicable way possible. Because people look at you and they do the math, and the math does not work. They run the numbers. The way you move, the way your skin holds light, the energy you carry into a room, the particular quality of your presence, they run all of it, and they arrive at a number that does not match what they are standing in front of. They look again, still does not add up. And the confusion on their face, that specific, slightly embarrassed confusion of someone whose confident assessment has just been quietly dismantled by evidence. That is one of the most honest reactions you will ever receive from another human being. Because they were not trying to be surprised. They came in with a framework. They thought they knew how to read what they were seeing. And then something about you, something that does not announce itself, does not perform itself, does not ask for acknowledgement, simply refused to fit the framework. And they stood there recalculating. Tick tock, tick tock, let me tell you what they are actually seeing, because this is important. Not for vanity, not for the shallow pleasure of knowing you have confused someone's expectations, but because understanding what produces this effect in people is understanding something profound about the relationship between how you have lived and what your living has written on you. Understanding this is understanding something about the reward system of a life built on certain foundations rather than others. Something about what time does to a person depending entirely on what that person does with time. Because here is the truth that the world does not discuss with nearly enough seriousness. Time is not neutral. Time is not a single experience that happens to everyone the same way, producing the same results at the same rate with the same effect on the face and the body and the energy of the person moving through it. Time is a revealer, a writer, a sculptor of sorts. And what it sculpts depends entirely on the material it is working with and the conditions under which the work is being done. And the material it has been working within you, the interior conditions, the daily choices, the orientation of your spirit, the things you have been feeding and the things you have been releasing. That material has been responding to time differently than most. No. This is not accident. This is not luck. This is not the random genetic fortune of someone who happened to inherit favorable circumstances and is simply coasting on an inheritance they did nothing to earn. What you carry, this glow, this quality, this thing that makes people's math stop working when they try to calculate you. This was produced by a specific way of moving through the world that has left a specific kind of mark, and I want to tell you what that something is. The glow is not a surface phenomenon, nah, and this is where most conversations about this kind of thing go wrong. They stay on the surface, they talk about skincare and water intake and sleep and the physical disciplines that contribute to physical appearance, and those things are real, they matter, they have genuine effect, and if you practice them, you should feel good about that practice. But they are not the source of what people are responding to when they look at you and find that their framework stops working. The source is deeper. The source is the quality of your inner life. And what that quality accumulated over years, practiced in private, chosen daily in ways that have no immediate audience and no immediate reward. What that quality eventually does to the exterior of a person who has been committed to it long enough. Think about what stress does to a face, not in the abstract, concretely, visibly, measurably. The particular tightness that comes from chronic anxiety. The lines that are not the beautiful lines of a life fully lived, but the carved tracks of a mind that never stops running. Worst case scenarios. The dullness that settles into the eyes of someone who has been carrying resentment long enough that the carrying has become invisible to them. They no longer notice the weight because the weight has simply become their normal. The particular quality of someone who has been at war with themselves for so long that the war is now written permanently in the set of their jaw and the tension in their shoulders and the guardedness that lives just behind their smile. Time writes all of that accurately and without mercy. But time also writes the other thing that happens to a person who has been not perfectly, not without struggle, not without seasons of genuine difficulty and real pain, and the particular exhaustion of being a human being in a world that does not make it easy. But fundamentally, at the level of daily orientation, at the level of what they return to when the difficulty passes, committed to peace, to gratitude, to releasing what cannot be carried, to finding the thing worth appreciating in the situation before cataloging the things worth resenting, to processing pain rather than storing it, to forgiving not for the other person, not as a performance of virtue, but as the deeply practical act of a person who understands that unforgiveness is acid that damages its container first. Time writes that too, and what time writes on a person who has been living that way is not a line-by-line account of every difficulty survived. It is something closer to light, a particular quality of settled energy, a face that has been through things but has not been hardened by things, eyes that carry depth without carrying damage, a presence that feels. And this is the word people reach for most often, even when they cannot fully explain it. Alive, genuinely, fully, quietly alive in a way that a lot of faces, for all their surface perfection, simply do not. And the age thing, the specific confusion people experience when their assessment of your age collides with what they are actually observing. That confusion is the most honest possible testimony to this. Because aging in the way that people expect aging to look is largely the accumulation of what has been stored, the weight of the unprocessed, the visible record of what was held too tightly and too long, the writing of chronic tension and unresolved grief, and the particular exhaustion of a person who has been performing okays over genuine okays for enough years that the performance is now showing through the performance when that accumulation does not show the way people expect it to show. It means something was not stored the way most people store it. It means something was processed, released, brought to the light and examined and handed over to something larger than the self to carry. It means seasons of difficulty were moved through rather than around, entered fully, felt completely and then genuinely left behind rather than tucked into the body to surface later as tension and guardedness and the particular aging that comes not from years but from weight. You moved through things and the moving through left a different mark than the storing would have. Now, let me talk about the glow specifically, because glow is the word people reach for and then immediately feel slightly embarrassed by because it sounds imprecise, almost mystical, resistant to the kind of concrete explanation that satisfying descriptions usually offer. But glow is actually a precise word for a real and observable phenomenon, and understanding what it actually is removes the mysticism without removing the wonder. Glow is coherence. What people are responding to when they use that word, when they look at you and reach for glow, because nothing more specific seems adequate, is the visible coherence of a person whose interior and exterior are not at war with each other. The alignment of someone who is at the most fundamental level, living in a way that matches who they actually are. Not performing a life, not maintaining a presentation that requires constant energy to sustain because the presentation and the reality beneath it are two different projects. actually living from the inside out, from the real self outward into every expression and choice and interaction in a way that is genuinely integrated. And integration is visible not as a specific feature, as a quality of the whole, as something that registers before analysis and persists after the analytical mind has tried and failed to isolate its source, as the reason people look at you and feel something they reach for. Words like glow to describe, because the word captures the effect even if it does not fully capture the mechanism. The mechanism is alignment. The effect is light, and people are drawn to light, the way they are drawn to warmth automatically, pre-rational, without needing to decide to be drawn. Something in them simply orients. But here is what I need you to receive. Because there is a version of hearing everything I have just said that is still fundamentally passive, that receives this as something that happened to you, as a quality you were given, or that developed without your participation, as a gift rather than a result. And I need to gently but clearly refuse that framing, because the glow is not something that happened to you. It is something you chose. Accumulated choice. Accumulated choice by accumulated choice. In seasons when choosing it was not easy. In moments when the alternative, storing the bitterness, feeding the resentment, closing the heart that had been hurt and keeping it closed, was not just available but understandable, forgivable, the choice that most people would have made and that nobody would have blamed you for making. You made the other one. No, not once. Not in a single dramatic moment of noble decision, again and again and again. In the ordinary daily moments that do not feel like choices of consequence, but that accumulate over years into the total architecture of a life and a face and a presence and a glow, you chose to release what would have hardened you. You chose to release what would have hardened you. You chose to remain open when closing would have been justified. You chose to find the gratitude in situations that presented more obvious material for grievance. You chose to trust something larger than your own understanding in seasons when your own understanding had run out of explanations. Each of those choices cost something. Each of them required something from you that the opposite choice would not have required. And the accumulation of those costs, those daily private unwitnessed payments toward a way of being that you could not have seen, was producing what it was producing. That accumulation is the glow. You built it with your choices over years, and now people are looking at you and their math is not working, and they are reaching for words like glow, because something about you is registering as extraordinary, and they cannot locate the source. And that inability to locate the source is itself part of what makes it so compelling, because the things we can fully explain do not fascinate us. It is the things that exceed our explanatory frameworks, the things that produce an effect whose source we cannot isolate, whose mechanism we cannot fully trace, whose presence we can feel clearly but cannot reduce to a formula. Those are the things that stay with us, that return to us, that make us look again. You are one of those things. Let me say one more thing. One final thing that I need you to carry with you. Not as pride, not as the kind of self-satisfaction that closes a person rather than continuing to open them, but as a responsibility. The glow is not just for you. It was never just for you. A light that is kept private illuminates nothing. A warmth that is hidden serves no one. The particular quality that time and choice and orientation have produced in you. The thing that stops people's frameworks, that makes their math fail, that sends them reaching for words like glow, because ordinary words feel insufficient. That thing has a function beyond being admired. It gives people permission. This is the deepest gift of a person who carries what you carry. Not the admiration they generate, Not the confusion they produce in people's age calculations, but the permission their presence extends to everyone around them. The silent, powerful, completely unspoken permission to believe that it is possible, that a person can go through real things, genuine difficulty, real loss, actual seasons of darkness, and come out the other side. Not diminished, but luminous. Not hardened, but deepened. Not aged in the way that weight ages a person, but matured in the way that wisdom matures a face, making it more itself, more settled, more undeniably alive. You are proof that this is possible. Not as a poster, not as an inspiration account, just as a person living their actual life in a way that happens to demonstrate to everyone who encounters you and finds that their framework stops working, that the relationship between how you live and what you're living produces in you is real, that choosing peace over bitterness is real, that releasing